FAQ ASDB Staff Reopening Number 2 as of August 10th, 2020. To support communication and update staff as we reopen our schools and work in the itinerant setting, we have developed an FAQ Staff Reopening document. This is a working document that will have additional information added as it becomes available. Updates will be made available through the agency email system sent by Assistant Superintendent Dr. Kristen Rex, as well as posted on our website in ASL. Question: there are concerns about accessibility for staff and students who are deaf and hard of hearing. Are we allowed to wear clear face masks? Do we have to supply our own clear face masks? Answer: updated August 10th, 2020. In addition to the 5,000 clear face masks donated, ASDB has ordered an additional 10,000 more. These masks are disposed of after one use and considered PPE for staff in the high-risk category while serving our students. This aligns with the risk management recommendations from the risk assessment completed by supervisors this summer. ASDB also supports accessibility of staff and students and is in the process of purchasing face coverings and face shields. The face coverings are for teachers, staff, and students when they return to class. If a staff member requests a face shield, they will be given support in cleaning the shield. Please note, these shields are not PPE, and if you are performing high-risk activity, you will need to use the proper face mask. Question: how do I know if I am high risk, medium risk, or low risk? Answer: updated August 10th, 2020, from Albert Duff via email to the agency on July 29th, 2020. ASDB conducted a risk assessment for each job category and will be passing out PPE for those that are in the high risk category. The PPE is distributed based on the tasks and activities that create a known risk. The assessment was completed by principals and directors through a series of questions that determined if a position was low, medium, or high risk. Cloth coverings limit communication for everyone. ASDB will be providing clear face masks for those jobs determined as high risk. Those individuals who are in the low or medium risk categories will be asked to supply their own face coverings. Question: when should a person wear PPE? Answer: from Albert Duff's email to the agency, July 29th, 2020. Answer: PPE will be issued by the agency to those categorized as high risk. The assessment for risk levels using what is called hierarchy of controls is the industry practice to reduce the risk of employees being exposed. In the hierarchy of controls, there is the highest level of protection, administrative controls, which in response to COVID-19, we're asking staff to stay 6 feet apart and call for assistance for bodily fluid cleanup. Next is the mid-level protection, or engineering controls. In response to COVID-19, we have redesigned classrooms to allow for space, installed plexiglass barriers, and supply additional cleaning supplies. The lowest level of protection is personal protective equipment, or PPE. Using 6 feet apart, call for assistance for bodily fluids, we eliminate the need for PPE as you are not being required to expose yourself to the risk. For those staff members unable to implement administrative controls and cannot be protected by an engineering control, then the agency will supply PPE. The goal of the agency is to support staff to reduce risk of employees being exposed to blood-borne pathogens and other potentially infectious diseases. If you are high risk and PPE is provided to you by the agency, you may not change or alter the PPE. Question: are we required to wear face coverings? Answer: updated August 10th, 2020, from the Arizona Department of Education, Interpretation of Roadmap for Reopening Schools. The answer is yes, and that decisions are being made using data in the areas of health and education, and will update us on this issue. Face coverings and practicing social distancing will be required until the Department of Health Services determines no longer necessary. There may be areas of your work that you can perform duties without wearing a face mask. Please ensure using safe distancing protocols. Question: what happens if a staff member has traveled out of the country? Answer: updated August 10th, 2020. There is a 14-day quarantine period for staff that travel out of the country. If your job requires you to work in the office or on campus, you will need to work with HR. If your job is eligible for remote work, then you may work from home. If you have traveled out of the country, you need to contact your supervisor. If you have traveled out of state, please work with your supervisor and HR to clarify if there is any quarantine necessary. This will be a case-by-case conversation with your supervisor and HR. At this time, there is no quarantine in state-to-state travel. Question: with all this new information and changes, is there a place for me as a PDSD or an ASDB school staff member to know about procedure changes, policies, and practices? What if I'm a cooperative, preschool, or other agency employee? Answer: yes, a staff reopening manual has been developed. It has been shared with school staff by the principals. Also, the preschools have protocols that they are developing, and staff will receive guidance from their director and supervising teachers. For staff in the cooperatives, the directors are working with individual school districts in developing the new protocols, practices, and procedures. Each department is responsible for developing and sharing practices, protocols, and procedures. Please reach out to your immediate supervisor for more information. The following FAQ section below is directly related to the 2020 Executive Orders School Reopening August 10th, 2020 update. The goal of this section is to answer questions related to Governor Ducey's most recent Executive Order 2020-51, issued on July 23rd, 2020, Executive Order 2020-44, and Executive Order 2020-41. The Arizona Department of Education will work closely with Governor Ducey's office and the Arizona Department of Health Services. Please remember that there are sections of the orders that will not pertain to ASDB, as we are no longer considered an LEA in our schools. Question: when and who will provide school districts and charter schools health benchmarks for resuming in-person, teacher-led classroom instruction? Answer: the Arizona Department of Health Services is required to develop health benchmarks for resuming in-person, teacher-led classroom instruction. School districts and charter schools should consider the metrics when determining when to return to school. The metrics will be used in determining when we open for in-person instruction at our schools. Question: how will the 180-day requirement be affected with the release of the latest Executive Order 2020-44? Both of our schools went to a 4-day instruction schedule. This means that they had to submit calendars to ADE and will be working with ADE to determine the number of hours that we will need to complete to claim our full voucher for our students. Question: what qualifies as attendance tracking under a distance learning plan? Answer: schools and charters will have the flexibility to design attendance tracking procedures. Methods may include communication with a teacher via telephone, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or other digital meeting software. Student participation in a virtual meeting or classroom session. such as Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meets, etc. Or daily assignments completed and submitted by a student, or a parental attestation or documentation of time spent on educational activities assigned by the school. Please note, our schools are no longer considered an LEA, and we are awaiting further instruction from ADE. Question: do absences need to be reported? Answer: attendance and absences must be recorded daily and reported to ADE at least monthly. The schools have a plan for attendance. Question: will schools get penalized for 10 or more consecutive unexcused absences? Answer: yes. ARS 15-901 requires students who generate 10 consecutive unexcused absences to be dropped, retroactive to the last day of unexcused absences. This topic is currently also under review with ADE.